Kia ora, my name is Craig, and you have tuned into this New Zealand Small Business and Entrepreneur Festival podcast delivered to you by DHL, connecting your business with the world. Today, we are super lucky. We've got Mike Hutcheson on board, and he is a marketing guru. So before I bring him into the podcast, I just wanted to run you through his bio, and it's lengthy, and I need to read it because I couldn't remember everything. So currently, Mike is an adjunct professor at the Auckland University of Technology, and he has spent most of his life working out what makes people tick, what they want, and why. Mike is a serial startup guy, having co-founded the leading advertising agencies Colenso BBDO and Hutcheson Knowles Marinkovich. He was the managing director of Saatchi Saatchi. He launched the Lighthouse Ideas Company in 2003. He launched the Scarborough Fair, which is a fair trade organic coffee and tea marketing company. He also planted the Lonely Cow Vineyard on Waiheke Island. He's director of a number of private and public companies. It says here in his intro that he loves wine twice, so he loves wine a lot. Mike has written 4 books and is a regular television guest and commentator. He writes an innovation column for Idealogue magazine and has been named the Business Columnist of the Year. Let me introduce you to Mike Hutcheson.
Kia ora.
Kia ora, Mike. How are you?
Oh, fine. Everything's kapai here.
That was a very lengthy introduction, but you're obviously a marketing guru, and we are proud and honored to have you on here on the SME&E Festival podcast. So, Mike, what I would love for you to talk to the audience about for the next couple of minutes is really learn a little bit about you. I've given them an idea of what you've done, but not so much in terms of the detail of what you have done over years. So I might pass it over to you to go and to talk us through your origin story and why you love marketing so much.
Right. Well, it's pretty simple, really. I'm only an accidental academic, although I'm obviously teach innovation and marketing at AUT now. My real background, well, certainly at school, is I wanted to be an art teacher. I've got no marketable skills at all, apart from being able to write and draw. And so when I was a kid, I just assumed that I was going to be a school teacher, like my father, although I didn't actually really want to be a school teacher, but I thought that because I could only write and draw, those are the things that I'm going to be left with. But as it turns out, having done fine arts prelim in my year 13 or 7th form as it was then, I was told by my form master I couldn't have first place in class because I'd just done art and English. And he said that you've got an A in oil painting. How do I compare that with boys who've done very well in maths? And so it went on. Anyway, he didn't even grade me. And so I decided not to go to art school after all because I'd done something that was useful but worthless. It was unable to be measured. I ended up going to law school for a couple of years, which was a total waste of time because I already hated it. But I ended up in advertising and a company called Charles Haynes. I sat my advertising diploma and did quite well. In fact, I got the highest marks in Australia and New Zealand, actually, in the Advertising Institute exams in that year. And was working for a company called Charles Haynes. I had a scholarship to go to Australia. When I came back from Australia, I met 2 of the colleagues I'd been working with at Haynes, who said they're going to start a new advertising agency. Did I want to come? I mean, I was 21, nearly 22 at the time. What does a young man say? So I said, yep. And so we started Colenso and had a terrific ride. And then partway through that, my wife's family had a building company which wasn't doing very well. They asked me if I'd go on the board to help sort of put it back on track. I didn't know anything about buildings, so I took myself to Polytech and did a real estate and construction diploma and learned a bit about that. And then started a company called Replica Homes. And in the middle of that, I also started a laundromat, and I've done all kinds of entrepreneurial things. In fact, my first entrepreneurial foray actually was at school. On Thursday mornings, our art master used to take adult education classes. So there was no one except us in the art room. There were 3 of us doing fine arts prelim. And so we'd put our easels and our paints away, and we'd get the boarders to come in. And for a shilling would draw them a nude. Sixpence they'd have a bikini on it, but for a shilling would draw them nudes. That was my first foray into selling things that I could. So I realised that if I drew, I could actually make some money. Anyway, so my career in advertising started, and it went really from strength to strength. And but in the meantime, I started another couple of companies. I launched a vineyard on Waiheke. So I had a building company, a vineyard, a wine distribution company, tea and coffee marketing company with Scarborough Fair, which was the first New Zealand organic tea and coffee marketing company. We are in 2,500 supermarkets across Australia and New Zealand. Of course, as soon as they saw us doing well, typical bloody Aussies, they took us off the shelf and put their own house brands in, which was a bit of a disappointment. But so I've learned the hard way. I've been involved in 9 startups over time, 3 ad agencies, a tea and coffee marketing company, a building company, as I said, 2 building companies, and 3 advertising agencies. So I've done a lot of different things, but my real passion is marketing. See, I believe that marketing is the most important thing in the world. I've got a friend in the States. In fact, he's a shareholder in our wine distribution company over there. He's a cardiologist. Now, he's a heart surgeon. He thinks he's pretty special. And I said, look, you're just a plumber. The only thing difference between you and the guy from Laser Plumbing is that you do your work when the water's still running. And he kind of agreed with that. And I said, well, it's because you're a good marketer. He said, no. He said, I don't need marketing. I said, yes, you do. Marketing, the true definition of marketing is doing something so well, people beat a path to your door. I said, you don't do any advertising. That's different from marketing. Marketing is a philosophy. In my view, a company with a marketing department is like a church with a religion department. I mean, hello, what's it all about? You've actually, marketing is everything. Unless you're a marketer, you're not in business. And that's why I think the marketers are the best CEOs of companies. And the worst are accountants, because they know the cost of everything but the value of nothing. If you're a true marketer, you have built a business around solving a consumer's problem, whatever that might be. I mean, if you go back 250,000 years, 300,000 years, whenever man emerged from caves, we had division of labor. Some people ended up being hunters, some people ended up being farmers, some were bakers, some, whatever, some were doctors, some were advisors, some were scouts, we all broke up into different things. And we were successful because what we did was better than something you could do yourself. If you can bake bread better than the Pandora bakery down the road, why would you buy bread off them? You'd do it yourself. The idea of marketing is that you do what you do so well, people beat a path to your door. And that applies whether you're a small to medium enterprise. You could be the local baker, the local plumber, the local electrician. If you want to be a good electrician, make sure that you can, sure, you're protected by law and not everyone can wire up a house. But if it's a simple task and people do it better, then they'll beat a path to your, they'll do it themselves. If you are better than them, they'll beat a path to your door. And that is marketing. Marketing is not a function. Marketing is a philosophy. It's about thinking about your business so well that you answer your customers' problems. Then there are subsets in marketing, and I actually wrote a thesis. In fact, the thesis is this thing called paradox. It's why Kiwi culture enhances creativity but mitigates against its spread. Because we're actually very good at ideas. And when I wrote the thesis, I thought to myself, crikey, isn't this whole notion of Kiwi ingenuity a fundamental truth? But when I started doing the research, I found there wasn't much there. I mean, we have stories like Rutherford splitting the atom, but he split the atom in Manchester. He wasn't in Christchurch. He's a good boy from Nelson too, funnily enough, because I came from Nelson. But he went to Manchester to split the atom. And when you actually stack up all the Kiwi inventions that have really hit the world headlines, and the Kiwis who actually do really well, most of them do it when they're overseas. Because we don't have the scale here to make things happen. For example, we're 6th in the world at authoring high-tech research reports, but 63rd in the world behind Senegal and Bulgaria about high-tech manufactured output. We're really good at having the ideas. We're not very good at taking them to market or scaling them. And when you're left with taking Rutherford out of the pictures, even Richard Pearson, this flying machine, I mean, it's arguable that he beat the Wright. He could have beaten the Wright brothers, but he wasn't in control flight. He crashed into a hedge. We could argue that Burt Munro and his World's Fastest Indian was really good, but that was just a little flash in the pan. And we do those things. But when you actually distill down to its essence, what are those key inventions that Kiwis brought to the world? It's the disposable syringe, the hair clip, the egg beater. And that's, I used to think that Gallagher's invented the electric fence. No, they didn't. The Americans had been wiring up electricity to electric fences for years. Gallagher's developed the movable electric fence. That was their big breakthrough. But against all that, as I said, while we're in the top 10 in the world in terms of all the innovation and creativity measures, but they're not big ideas. You've got to argue that the Yanks putting a man on the moon or putting a spaceship past Jupiter beats the egg beater. In my view, it is. I mean, I may be wrong, but I just think that the stuff that we've done and the stuff that we've done that hits the global headlines is Kiwis have had to go abroad to do it. My mission is to help people in small businesses to do what they do so well and actually use whatever leverage they've got and whatever tools they can to actually make themselves famous in their communities. And there are lots of ways of doing that. And I could talk for hours about it. Part of it's about using the web. Part of it's about doing your job so well. And that's where word of mouth is the best way to promote your business. Do something so damn well that people keep talking about you and go viral in your suburb, go viral in your city, go viral in your town, or make something that people in the world want. I mean, when I left advertising, and this is about 15 years ago now, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I wrote on a piece of paper, I want to do well by doing good. And I didn't know what that really meant. And I'd started, as I did to, I started a real estate company. I started even a laundromat, and we built the laundromat because we knew that there was a need with the students in the area that we set it in. It was Christchurch's first laundromat. You do things when you find a gap in the market, and the key to success in any small business is making sure there's a gap in the market, but there's a big enough market in that gap. There are lots of people who find ideas or have ideas, but they go nowhere because the market that they're seeking to answer simply isn't big enough to really make it work. So, to me, understanding marketing is really about understanding what it is that you do that's better than anybody else, doing it in a way, in a time, in a place, at a price that beats everybody else, and then becoming famous for doing that. And there are lots of ways you can become famous. You can write a book if you really want to do it. You can go on the television. You can build a website. But even when you've got a website, that doesn't solve your problems because you've got to drive people to your website. How do they know how to find you?
Right.
Where are they going to? There's something like 500,000 websites that we've got access to in small to medium enterprises in this country. How do you start? Where do you find your way in? And that's about thinking through it. And the essence of my thesis that I wrote developed this periodic table of innovation. And it's a 12-step process that you go through to make sure that your idea reaches the right audiences, reaches the right eyeballs. And there's 12 steps in making that happen. And it's now part of a university course here at AUT. But also, as of last week, would you believe, it's just been picked up by a crowd called Asia Track, who sell online courses to universities and throughout Asia, Africa, and the US. In fact, they also want to go into the Middle East and UK as well, because it's a Kiwi idea. And it's a Kiwi idea that works because we are generalists in this country. We've had lots of experience at lots of different things, and the periodic table itself, which I'm sure that Craig will put up on the screen, will tell you all the 12 steps you need to take to make success out of a business. And it's about having your big idea first. And once you've got a big idea, you got to ask yourself, is this going to be a business or is it just a product? In other words, am I going to mortgage my house and rent some premises or a factory and start making it, building it, doing it, whatever? Or is it just an idea that I'll license to somebody else? Will I run it from home? Will it be online? Will it be through retail? Will I manufacture this, whatever it is, myself? And I can tell you, having done the fair trade tea and coffee thing, there was a funny thing. As I said, when I left Saatchi's, I just wrote a piece about I want to do well by doing good. And I met an American friend. And he said, what the hell does that mean? I said, I don't know. I'm just sick of, running. I've been running. when I was a kid, I was a prefect at school. I was a scout leader, and my father died when I was very young. I was always in charge of things. And by the time I got to leave Saatchi, I was sick of running things. I'm sick of being a CEO. Because when you're CEO, you're more concerned with answering people. I haven't a salary increase. I want a car park. You stop doing things that are good for you. You start doing things that are covering somebody else's ass. So my big call was to think, okay, I will just help startups and small businesses make themselves successful. And so that's where this periodic table of innovation came in. It's the 12 steps. So you've got your big idea. Is it a business or is it just a product? How do I get to a minimum viable product? How do I convince anybody else to lend me the money to develop it? Do I have to dig in my own pocket? Do I have to mortgage my house? All that sort of stuff. And the next question
is, so what have you got? So is that step 3 now? So step 1 is step 3 is big idea.
Step 1's a big idea. Step 2 is research. How do I do the research? Who's going to buy this? Who else is out there doing it? Step 2 step 3, is finance. Who's going to pay for it? How do I raise the money? What's going to happen? How do I do a budget? How do I know how much money I'm going to make from it myself? Step 4 is legal. Do I register a company? How do I get a shareholders agreement, a company constitution, lease premises, make the whole thing proper, protect my intellectual property, and so on? Then I've got to do some design. What does this thing look like? How do I develop a logo? What's my product look like? Who's going to do the design and packaging for my pickled gherkins or whatever I'm going to manufacture? How do I? The next step is marketing. What's my marketing strategy? Who am I talking to? How big is the market? Where are they? How do I reach them? What's my pricing policy? How do I make sure that I'm answering a real need? Because while you may, as I said before, it's easy to find a gap in the market. We've got to make sure there's a market in the gap. Because I've been approached by lots and lots of people who've got nice little specific ideas, but there's only about 3.5 people out there in the world who'll ever bother to buy it. So don't think that just because it appeals to you, you've got to make sure that it appeals to enough other people for you to sell enough of these things to make some money yourself. So then you do your marketing, then you do. Sorry.
I heard a really cool saying about finding the market in the gap, where there's a lot of people who like hot coffee and there's a lot of people who like cold coffee. But not many people want to buy warm coffee or lukewarm coffee. And so you got to understand whether or not there's actually a market for the gap. So warm coffee, probably not a great idea, but cold coffee and hot coffee, great idea.
Yeah, that's it, right. Well, funny enough, a few years ago, a guy approached me wanting to market a motorized pogo stick. And I thought that would be the most inherently dangerous thing I think that you could possibly even invent. So I said, don't, just don't even go there. And so you've got to be, got to think through. Anyway, so once you've got your marketing strategy worked out, you got to think, well, who's going to make this thing? Am I going to build a factory myself? And if you talk to a guy like Pete Cullinane, who's the guy who developed Lewis Road, he said never invest in stainless steel. There's far too much stainless steel out there already. You don't need to worry about it. You'll find somebody else to manufacture it for you. Then the only problem is how do you quality control? But that's another issue again. So then you got manufacturing. Then you got to think about, well, what's my infrastructure? How do I get my website connected to my accounting system? Do I drive everything through a website? How do I control all my workflow? How does is everything in my business going to be integrated? My website, my customer relationship management system hooked up to my accounting system, and so on. So you've got to think about the infrastructure. What do you need to do that? How many computers will you need? What do you need to hook up to make that happen? Then once you've got your manufacturing and infrastructure sorted out, what do you do about distribution? Who's going to distribute it for you? Is it just a local product, which is okay? Is it weightless? If it's weightless, well, you just plug it in and you fire it down the tubes off your computer. But if it's a physical product, does it require refrigeration? What's its shelf life? How am I going to get it to the States? Say if you're going to be exporting, I've got this wine distribution company. A real problem shipping wine across the equator, unless it's packaged and bottled properly, it might expand going through the tropics, and it'll pop, or when you get it to the other end. So you've got to be very careful about the way in which you package and distribute your stuff. And when you are distributing overseas, how are you going to get paid? If you're going into China, are they going to pay you in advance? And if they don't pay you in advance, how are you going to recover the money after you've shipped it off there and you can't get it back? Is the legal system going to work for you? All these sort of questions come up. So, and that's just a few of them. And then, of course, after you've done distribution, what's your sales channel going to be? How do you promote? How do you educate and train your salespeople to actually do the job properly? So making sure that that they're going to be well trained, well covered. What's the sales pitch and so on. And then even the people that you hire, quite apart from the training, there's a great saying that culture kills strategy, so that, or culture eats strategy for breakfast. Unless you've got the right people thinking the right way, no matter how good your strategy is, it ain't going to work unless you train your people and they love you and they love your product, they love working with you to all make that happen. And then finally, you're talking about communication. How do I make this famous? Do I put it on television? Is it social media? Is it web built? Is it word of mouth? Is it posters? Is it outdoor? Is it special events? Is it hospitality? There's a whole range of things you've got to consider, and that's what this periodic table does. And so we run a course now basically to help people do just that. And most of the people, although we run at the university, most of our participants in the course or in the program are actual small to medium business owners. And you've got to remember too that the average age of an entrepreneur in this country isn't 25, it's 45. You've got to think through, because a lot of the kids that we have going through university, and we get them to develop an idea, a lot of them are a bit lame. The young kids, they're about scented candles and T-shirts, which is fine. That's not going to build a big business, though. What we want to do is to help people develop big ideas. One of the young students we had was a young Samoan guy who came into the class. We interview them before we take them into our program at university to see if they've got an idea that's worth developing. And once they have developed that idea, we will take them in and give them the course. This young guy came in, very shy, big guy, actually, very shy, very humble guy, beautiful bloke. Sean Puckett was his name. And he said, "I said, you might think my idea is crazy. You might not want to take me on your course." I said, "Why not?" And I said, "I like big ideas." He said, "Well, mine's quite a big idea." "What is it?" He said, "I want to start an airline." And I thought, "I can help you do that. That's a big idea. This isn't just scented candles and T-shirts." Turned out he's from Tokelau. His parents were from Tokelau. There's no airstrip in Tokelau. So he wanted to start up a small commuter airline from Samoa to Tokelau. It's about 250 nautical miles. There's no port up there. It's serviced by a twice weekly ferry service, which can only run if the water's calm. And so he thought, would it be terrific for tourism for the island, B, for medical emergencies or pregnancy, whatever it is, to have something. So we were able to give him, put him in touch with a great mentor. We were able to tell him that you need to knock over that many coconut palms and have an airstrip that long. You need this kind of aircraft to fly on that service, simply by putting him in touch with the right people who we knew. A guy in New Zealand who could tell him exactly. He got his business plan in about 2 hours by talking to the right people. And that's the other part of the course we run. We make sure that we find a mentor, or make sure that we initially we actually found mentors for people. We said, that's crazy. They're entrepreneurs. Find your own bloody mentor. If you've got, being an entrepreneur, pick up the phone and ask the questions. I know when I started Scarborough Fair, here's me having run the advertising agencies all my life, and I used to stand in the supermarket aisles, in the tea aisle, and talk to people as they're buying tea and coffee. Why did you buy that? What's that about? And so you just talk to people, and you find out what it is that they really want. And that's the only way you can do it. It's hard work. It's hard graft. It's not easy. You can't just, I've got a website now, my problems are solved. It doesn't work like that. It's just you've got to keep on doing all those things at different times.
Very good. So that aligns very much to what Cassie Roma was saying in episode 1 when she said, "Go and talk to some folk, go and get the data, go and get some analysis, see whether or not your idea is good, and then you can start thinking about what you as a brand or and your story is. But you need to get some analysis from other people." Hey, I thought I'll just in the interest of time. Start rolling through some through some questions. But what we will do, what we will do, Mike, is that we will make sure that in the show notes below and on the SME&E website, that we will link to the periodic table of innovation.
Yep.
And the 12 steps. And if you have any always go to Mike. So I would want to talk to you. Obviously, you love marketing, and you said marketing is life. Have you ever looked at a marketing campaign, whether that's on any sort of channel, and thought, yep, they have absolutely nailed that one? And if you have, what was that one?
Yeah. To me, one of the best in recent years is what Pete Cullen did with Lewis Road Creamery, the chocolate milk. Absolutely had it perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
And so, he answered a need that no one else had seen. I think it was Pablo Picasso said that creativity is seeing what everyone else has seen, but thinking what no one else has thought. And there's no shortage of ideas. We'll never run out of ideas. That we're actually really good at ideas in this country. And so you've got to just think, well, what is it that I do that I could turn into a product that answers a need? And Pete Cullen has done that a number of occasions. Certainly did with Lewis Road. Other people who have done it, often in infomercials like Suzanne Paul, you just answer a need and just explain it to people and just sell it. It's wet and forget. Great example of a business starting in a garage and just answering a real need.
Brilliant. So, do you think Lewis Road, was he attacked at scarcity, so they had a short amount of stock and sold it out quickly, and then everyone wanted it? Was it a you think that was a tactic that they did?
Yeah, created a need for it, and then said, "Oh, hurry, you'll run out." Oh no, I must get in soon. So that was a very clever marketing tactic, and they knew that if they created urgency, they ended up with queues outside of dairies and supermarkets. They couldn't get enough because they created the myth of scarcity. Brilliant strategy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Have you noticed any sort of common mistakes from small businesses and the way that they market their product, or not market it at all, and then just start shouting at people online, you know what I mean, instead of like actually creating a brand and a story and a marketing campaign? Have you noticed any common mistakes that would be easy to refine, to turn a business from not doing as well as they probably could, just with a few little tweaks?
Pricing is often the big mistake for small businesses. They think they have to be cheaper in order to sell more. Sometimes they should be braver and put the price up and market as and there are a number of examples of that, through in history. You actually increase the price and you create a scarcity about it. One of the great pleasures, I think, every time I buy an iPhone, I've got 3 iPhone boxes I've kept, because one of the nicest things about buying an iPhone is the box it comes in, because and it's probably incredibly wasteful, but it's beautiful. People like beautiful things. You could argue till the cows come home whether it's necessary. Probably not, but it's cool. And very often people miss that opportunity. They miss the cool factor. They think it's all about price, when it may not be. A lot of it's about perception. Why would you buy? It's like if you ask that spurious question, what's the best car in the world? Well, my answer to everything is it all depends. Do you want to go off road? Well, it's probably not a Rolls Royce. If you want to go fast, well, it's probably not a Citroen 2CV. You think to yourself, what is it? What is it that you're really? What's the question you're answering? What's the problem that you're solving? What's the question you're answering? And so many products, so many ideas are the answers to questions that no one's asking. And so if you're a plumber, you're not selling tapware. You're selling confidence and the ability to turn up on time and solve the leaky cylinder or whatever it is. There must be an incredible opportunity for tradespeople to coordinate their activities so they arrive at a building site on time and in sequence with the other tradies, for example. If I was a baker, I would make sure that I was baking twice a day. You go to France, you buy a baguette, and they only last a day because there's no preservative. Most beautiful bread, but there are two. There's one at 4 a.m. And one at 2 p.m. And so you'll get 2 batches a day of the best, freshest, crispest bread. And if I was a baker here, I wouldn't be baker boy. I'd make people walk, and they will walk, and they will find you if your product is good enough. I'd turn it on its head. I wouldn't worry about convenience and having lots of stuff stacked up. I'd make sure it was warm and fresh when they bought it. So there are literally queues outside at particular times of the day. Or you might do 3 bakes. You might do 4 a.m., 10 a.m., and 2 p.m. or whatever it is to answer that market need. And I mean that would be a sorry.
What do you? Okay. If I'm a small business, and I have not got a marketing plan at all, do not know much at all about marketing, what would be the first thing that you'd suggest that they do?
Join my course. I'll tell them what. Just sign up. Sign up. We'll give you the whole plan there on online. So it's a 12-step program. Part of it would be then, and also if I was concerned, they must know somebody in amongst their friends who has a child of 14 or 15, and get them to do it. Do it on TikTok. Do it on Instagram. Do it on WhatsApp. I mean, my daughter uses Instagram and WhatsApp to run her business, which is styling for women coming back to the workforce. Little niche market. She realized that lots of people like her had the kids, they're off to school now. I got it back into the workforce. Huge problem of confidence, not knowing what to wear, not knowing how to mix and match with it. And so she's got an amazing clientele she's built with up the last few years just by going online and showing people how to do it.
I've heard a story last week about a plumber in the States, and he was struggling to get new clientele, and instead of, he started doing content marketing. So he thought that he would just start showing people for free on YouTube how to do simple plumbing problems from home, and taking the plumber out, like changing a faucet, changing a washer, fixing up a hose, whatever that might be. Maybe changing something in your dishwasher. And from that, now he's had to take on multiple new staff. He's got so much more business because people are going to him to try and figure out how to fix things. And if they can't do it themselves, they give him a call, and he comes around and fixes it for them.
That's exactly right. And there's a whole raft of things in that. I mean, for example, with our course, we give away the periodic table itself for free. And people can look at it and think, oh, that's a good idea. But then think, oh, how do I actually use it? And so that's when we get the call. That's how we fill our course. So to me, I'd like to get the periodic table of innovation free to everybody in the country, particularly the kids, and have them become nascent entrepreneurs at age 14 or 15. The course is now being picked up by St Cadogan College as the curriculum for their Innovation Academy. And some terrific ideas have come out of the kids by going through the course. They're not just scented candles and T-shirts, grown-up stuff, because you enable them to think at a higher level. And so I just give it. Oh, the other thing I should mention too, Craig, one of the things that occurred to me last year, because we've been going for almost 3 years now on this course at university, so just refining it and polishing it as we go. Now that it's ready to go international, we've ironed almost all the bugs out. One of the things I realized last year was a lot of the students who have gone through university have graduated in a discipline for which there's no job. You know, there are lots of kids who got graduate degrees in marketing or biology, whatever it is, and they end up working for call centers because that's the only job they can get. And I said to the university or the vice chancellor that let's stop teaching kids in silos. Let's give them this holistic view, like the periodic table, so that they're not just a lawyer or an accountant or a marketer or a designer or an engineer. They have at least a working knowledge right across all those disciplines. So they know if they don't know it themselves, a bit like your one, the electrician, they know who to call on. They know who to talk to with, by having an awareness of the things that go together, and that's all part of it. And if you give it away for free, give the basis away for free, they'll come back to you because they'll love you and trust you.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good tactic and suggestion. A couple other questions before we wrap it up. What's the most cost-effective way to market?
Word of mouth.
Word of mouth.
Yep. But the trouble is you need lots of mouths, and so the words have to be bloody good. But if you start people talking about you, that's how movies take off. People recommend you. Now the theatres don't do much online advertising at all, but cheap as the word gets around, and so what you've got to do is make sure the word is compelling and exciting or interesting or whatever, so that people will in fact spread the word. And so that's the best one. Next best probably would be social media, but then you've got to, well, who are you talking to? You've got quite narrow audience in social media. It could be Instagram, could be TikTok, it could be one of those local suburban apps that develops, like Neighbourly or whatever, or a lot of community groups develop their own app. So they talk. It's a bit of an echo chamber, but it depends. How many people you need to talk to, and if you're a small to medium business, what's your pool? What's the size of your fishing pool? How far do you want to go? How far afield do you want to go? And then that's a matter of applying money. The more money you spend, the more people you'll reach. But the best thing to do is to get word of mouth going, have people talk about
you. What about if you're a small business and you're not so small anymore, you've got 15 or so staff? When is it time to start thinking about going to an agency to do the work?
There are lots of freelance. The agency business has changed. We had the halcyon days of advertising in the 70s and 80s. In the 90s or late 80s, early 90s, it became deregulated. By the time it got to 2000, see, when we started Colenso, like in the 70s, we were the only consultant a lot of our clients had. There was no McKinsey, there was no Boston Consulting Group. Even for quite small companies, our first client at Colenso was a small building company in Tawa out of Wellington, and they had a subdivision at Pukerua Bay. I remember it well. And that was our first client because we were small. We didn't charge much. But if a small business, you probably couldn't afford to go to an agency. But there are dozens of really talented young creatives out there in the marketplace, because the agency world has changed radically. When it became deregulated in the late 80s, early 90s, a lot of the revenue went out of it, and so a lot of the agencies shrank. Margins are very slim now, and a lot of the best people went out on their own, just and so find a good freelance or a small digital agency who can do the job for you, or an old wise guy who will give you a strategy and then get someone else to execute it. Pay them a fee. Pay them 10 grand to give you an idea, and then go and do it yourself. Those skills are available, and you can go online to pick up those things. But you need a good thinker, or need to have exposure to the right people to give you the idea to begin with. And that's a consulting role there rather than an agency role, in my opinion.
Cool. Last question. Well, not so much a question, it's more of a ask. So you've written 4 books, is it?
5 books.
And your latest book, 5 books now. And what's your latest book? And can you let our listeners know what they were going to get out of your book?
Well, this is basically to reinvent yourself post-COVID. It's called "This is a Sort Your Shit Out" book, and really, it's about thinking about what you're good at and understanding what you should be doing to really make yourself happy. Who are you? What do you do? And I've developed this thing called a Wikipedia. It's a brain dump of all the things that are in your head, because I believe we're all creative. There are lots of creative ideas that reside in our heads and always have. What we're not good at is joining the dots about the things that we love in order to create something new. And for me, when I started my building company, it was because I was on the board of this family building company. We'd put it back on its feet. In fact, I offered to buy it off the family and said, "Oh, that's going well now, we'll keep it." So I thought, damn it, I'll start my own building company. And I'd been to Polytech. I'd had my real estate and construction diploma, so I knew vaguely how a house went together. And my great-great-grandfather was an architect, a colonial architect in Nelson in the 1850s and 60s. A lot of the lovely old houses in Nelson, and I used to sketch them. My wife said, "Why can't we have one of those?" I said, "Well, they're in Nelson or near the gasworks." And she said, "Why can't we build one?" I thought, why not? I know about this stuff now. So I joined some dots. My ability to sketch and draw with my ability to understand building, because I had my diploma, the fact that I'd been in advertising, I knew about marketing. So I joined those dots and created a company. And I believe we can all do that. And so one of the things I do now too is actually take people to get them, to build their own Wikipedias, the brain dump of all the things that are in their heads, and then look at it and say, "Oh, I can join this dot and that dot." I can do. I bet you if you did a Craigopedia, you'd be able to develop something that you hadn't thought of up until now. "Oh yeah, crikey! I was really interested in 6th century hand dynasty ceramics. I must join that up with my whatever it is. Join that up with something else, and create an old-fashioned ceramic shops. There'll be stuff there in everyone's head." And so I just help. I don't do. I've never ever come up with something that somebody hasn't thought of themselves in some way. All I've got to do is give them the confidence to join them together when they hadn't really thought about it. Because you can only make a cake out of the stuff that's in your pantry.
You can only make a cake out of the stuff that's in your pantry. I love that. If you could give one small, short piece of advice for a small business or entrepreneur out there, what would it be?
Be curious, read widely, read well, and get into the zeitgeist of the community that you're in. Know who you're talking to. Who are your customers? What do they really want? What do they really want? And don't just ask the friends at the golf club with, because I'll just tell you what you think. Get out there and ask the people that you're not working with every day. Find out, stand in the supermarket aisle, find out what they're doing. Go to the bookshops, read widely, read well, be curious, and just be nosy about what people really want. If you've got a hairdressing salon, what else can you sell with? Could you sell beauty magazines? Could you be a conduit for a travel business? Because one of the things you get to do when you're in a hairdressing salon is to get to talk to people. You find out what they want. I reckon that some of the best research I've ever done is taxi drivers and barmen. You can tap into the zeitgeist. Just ask questions. Be curious.
Awesome. Well, Mike, thank you very, very much for your time. This has been super epic discussion about marketing, small businesses. Well, like I said before, the periodic table of innovation sounds like it's something that everyone should get into and understand. If you need to learn about marketing or develop a marketing plan, go and do the course at AUT. And Mike, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Craig. It's been terrific. Really enjoyed it.
Awesome. See you soon, eh? Ka pai.
See you, mate. Ka pai.